Good afternoon. My name is Brendan Malone, and I look around this crowd and I see a very diverse group of people. In fact, I think this has all the hallmarks and the makings of a humorous anecdote about an atheist, an Anglican, a disability rights activist, and a palliative care doctor who all went to Parliament together. Except this isn't a joke, is it? We're here for a very, very serious reason. In fact, you could argue that we are here for probably the most serious of reasons of all. What is being proposed by this bill is the most seismic shift in our laws, in our practice of medicine, in our medical ethics, in our entire history as a nation. This is as serious as it gets. And when I think about the seriousness and the danger of this bill, I remember an incident involving my own father who died last year. Now, my father was always the life of the party. He was a cow cocky, a dairy farmer originally from the Waikato. He was a big man. He always had a joke. He was a guy that would dominate a room. He'd walk into a room and you knew that Tom Malone was in that room. That was my dad. About 2 or 3 years before he died, he had to go into full-time care though because of his illness. And I remember going to visit him not long after he'd been put into care with one of my kids. And he looked at me, forlorn, and he said to me, "Son, I've been a huge burden on this family. I will do whatever you tell me to do because I don't want to be a burden anymore." I always think about that incident when I think about this bill, because that's the reality of how this bill will be applied and played out if it is brought into law. It will be people like my father who will be left to grapple with the consequences of this very bad decision if it is passed into law. And that's why there's such a diverse group of us here today to speak out in opposition, because we all recognise that same thing. This is a very dangerous piece of legislation. And some things are just too dangerous to be allowed in a society. And do you know what? This Parliament knows that too. Do you know why I know that they know this? Because earlier this year, after the atrocities that happened in my hometown of Christchurch, this Parliament acted very swiftly based on that principle. And they changed our laws, our firearms laws, because they said some things are just too dangerous to have in society. Why are we not applying that same principle to this bill? This Parliament knows how to think well and to act well. It should be thinking and acting well now on this bill. After the second reading of this bill, we were promised there was going to be robust discussion and there was going to be safeguards and this bill was going to be tightened. Well, some changes were made, but it's not safe. Where was the robust discussion? Where were those stringent safeguards we were promised? Why did so many of the supplementary order papers that tried to improve this bill, why were they voted down? If our commitment was to safety, where was it? Some people said to me the other day, "Why bother going to Wellington, Brendan?" So many people submitted to the select committee process. Our experts, as you've already heard, have spoken strongly against this bill in overwhelming numbers, and still that voice seems to have been forgotten or ignored. So why bother turning up? Well, I'm here today because, first of all, the final whistle has not blown. There is still a vote tonight. There is still an opportunity for the ship to be turned around before it hits the rocks. Number two, some issues are so serious and the consequences literally so dangerous that you don't stop playing, you give your all until the final whistle blows, and then you probably give a little bit more as well. And that's what this issue is. I'm here today not because I'm looking to win a popularity contest or because I want a pat on the back from anyone. I'm here today for the vulnerable members of our community. That's why I'm here, and I believe that you are too. I'm here today because bringing this bill into law is a very bad idea that will, as former Prime Minister Bill English told us this morning in the media, lead to the wrongful killing of vulnerable members of our community. And that is a failure of governance of the highest order. I'm here today because even though my father passed away last January, there are still tens of thousands of other Tom Malones out there. There are still tens of thousands of other men and women who are just as vulnerable and grappling with that sense of whether or not they belong or should even be here another moment longer. And they deserve better than this bill. They deserve better than a dangerous and poorly crafted assisted suicide bill. That's why I'm here today, and I believe that's why you're here today as well. And one last thing I want to say just to wrap up with is this. Regardless of what happens in the House tonight, I would implore you not to be discouraged. The final whistle has not blown, and it will not be blown tonight. There is still more work to be done regardless of what happens. We still have more that needs to be done. If the vote goes our way, which would be awesome and the best thing for New Zealand, then guess what? We've still got more work to do. We need to go back into our families and our communities and to actually live out and build authentic community with those vulnerable, isolated, atomized, alone and broken people who desperately need the love and the care of community around them to protect them from this dangerous bill. Thank you for listening.